is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in this video we have two things to talk about. It's some Lions news for today. We're going to be talking about the high praise that has been given to Matthew Stafford recently, and also we're going to be talking about what if the Detroit Lions select Jeffrey Okudah. What are they going to do in the second round? Let's get it started. Okay, everybody, now, I actually did a prediction a while ago on what the Lions would do in the draft. I had them trading back and selecting Jeffrey Okudah. But in this video, we're kind of just talking about second-round prospects that the Lions could go with. We know they pick at number 35. We're not sure if they will get to trade back or not. Obviously, if they trade back, that'd be a lot better to trade back and get Okudah to get more picks. But we're not really talking about, we're just kind of talking about early in the second round at 35. If you trade back with the Chargers, you're probably going to have 37, So we're talking about that kind of range. Even if you get the 26 from the Dolphins, that's almost a second round pick anyways. So we'll talk about some players that Detroit Lions could go with if they decide to select Jeffrey Okudah. And we're also going to be talking about what was said about Matthew Stafford recently. So Bucky Brooks actually put something on Twitter recently about Matthew Stafford, and I saw this and I thought this was pretty cool. And I thought it was also a very interesting list to see who was not on the list. So Bucky Brooks basically put out a list of his top 5 transcendent quarterbacks, and he, had a whole definition on what transcendent means. He said it basically means you could put these guys in any scheme, any system, add any players. You just give them the ball and get out of the way, and they're ready to go. They can make plays happen. They're just great quarterbacks. So basically, they can fit anywhere. You can just throw them in, it'll work. That's what he called his transcendent players. That was kind of his definition for what a transcendent quarterback was. And he had 5 of them. So I'm going to go through the 5, and I'm going to talk about some of the ones that actually weren't on this list. You have Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback from the Chiefs. Now, I thought this was an interesting choice right off the bat. Now, I get it. Patrick Mahomes has a ring. He had some crazy numbers. I get it. The only thing that I think is weird about this is that his definition of transcendent are players that can fit in any scheme, can fit in any system. This guy has only been in the league for a few years playing for the same system, basically, right? So I thought that was a very interesting choice. But, I guess when you look at what he's done, I think you can't really argue with putting him on here. Then you see Russell Wilson. Now, Russell Wilson to me is an obvious choice. I think Russell Wilson is so underrated to some people. Some people don't look at this guy as good as he is. I think Russell Wilson's one of the best quarterbacks in football, and he's been for a long time. This guy is a very good quarterback, and I'm not even a Seattle fan, but he's a very good quarterback, and it's just hard to argue that. Now, I've made videos in the past where I've argued why Stafford is better. If you guys want to go see that, go check it out. I'm not going to get into that in this video. That got a lot of hate, but I tried to make that case. It was called making a case. Yeah, that one was kind of tough. But Russell Wilson's just a great player. We know that, right? He makes plays. He shows up in big moments. He's clutch. He can move around. He can throw the football. He's been on really bad teams and found a way to get it done. Russell Wilson, he's got the whole thing. So you want to talk about a guy that can fit in any scheme with any players that can win games, give him the ball and get out of the way? Russell Wilson, to me, is the definition. He should be number 1 on this list. That's just me being honest. Next up, we got Aaron Rodgers. Again, I think this is a fair point. Obviously, I don't like the guy. I think it's a fair point to put him on here. Aaron Rodgers, he's played in a couple of different schemes, right? He's been with a new head coach now. He's been with the same coach for most amount of time. He did have some very big down years, but so did Stafford, so I don't think, that could take it away. We just know that, he's a good quarterback. I don't like him, but he's good. So, you know what? No, he's not good. He shouldn't be on this list. All right, next up, we have Deshaun Watson. Another one, kind of like Patrick Mahomes. To me, this is a young player that's only been in the league for a few years. Now, I think as we see a couple more years of Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson will really get to see what these players are made of. Because it kind of makes me think, to the Cam Newton thing, right? Cam Newton was an MVP. He was in the Super Bowl. And now all of a sudden, he's just kind of fallen off. I don't even think he's on a team yet, right? He's not even on a team. A former MVP, I'm not saying he's a bust, right? Oh, he's a bust. But, he's still taking a team to a Super Bowl. The team is great, but he took him to a Super Bowl. I just think it's kind of like that. Okay, hold up. I got to give them a few more years to really see what their future looks to be because they're very young. But again, Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, from what we have seen, there's really no argument against it. And then finally, he put in Matthew Stafford, which to me was awesome. I got so happy when I saw that. I'm like, Matthew Stafford, let's go, man. I see you, Bucky. Now, let's talk about the players that weren't on here, okay? Drew Brees. Again, kind of an age thing. I think that's the same reason that Tom Brady is not on here. Both of these guys are 2 of the best quarterbacks in the game. I think he's passing on these because of age. Matt Ryan. I think a lot of people like Matt Ryan. I don't think Matt Ryan's that great. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback. I don't think he's one of the best quarterbacks. I think he's a good quarterback. I'd give him that. I think he's a solid quarterback. Obviously, he's led a team to a Super Bowl. He pretty much should have had the win, right? He should have had that win, which is super unfortunate for Falcons fans. I'm sorry. If you're a Falcons fan, I'm sorry. That's awful. But hey, at least y'all have been to a Super Bowl, right? So be happy for that. Be grateful for that. Those are 2 interesting things that I saw that were not on here. Those are the really only 2 that I would consider possibly putting on here because, what they've done. But if you're going right at this very moment, I can see why they're not on here. I can see why they're not in here. Yeah. And now let's talk about what else was said. This was Cliff Averill. So I'm going to throw up a clip. All right. This is Cliff Averill talking about Matthew Stafford. Basically, he was asked what the Lions should do with their picks in the draft, right? Should they go with Tua Tagovailoa? Should they take Stafford? Should they rely on Stafford? And he talked about his feelings. He kind of expressed a lot of things that I thought, Matt Patricia's job being on the line, that you have to win now. It's not maybe the best decision to keep Stafford. I'll show the clip. I don't want to talk too much over it, but I'll give you guys that. And yeah, check it out.
What should the Lions do? As a guy who knows Matt Stafford as well as anybody.
Man, you know what? I don't think they should give up on Staff yet, man. I don't think they should give up on him yet. I think the biggest thing, if anybody that's played against them, I've played against them, I've beat the team, I've broken down film. The man can throw the ball, man. He can still put it out there. He can still play some football. Had a couple injuries here and there, but a lot of people are asking, should they get Tua? From Alabama, he's coming off of an injury. So if at all. If I'm the coach, I know I've been there for 2 years. I know I only have a year or two left. If we don't start winning some ball games, do I want to go off of a young player that's coming out of college that's been injured, or do I keep the veteran player that I have and surround him with other great players? I would do that. I would leave Staff there, surround him with some good players, get some that defense going again, and give him a real chance to be able to win some ball games.
Okay, yeah, so that's the clip of what Cliff Averill had to say about Matthew Stafford. I pretty much agree with a lot of it. I think Tua is a good player with the injury again. I think, Matthew Stafford can win some football games if we can build a team around him. And I don't know if Patricia, like he said, is in that position right now to take a quarterback. So I thought I'd just point that out. Cliff Averill was a Lion. At one time, he had a really good year. I think that was right before? I think that was his contract year. He had a huge year, and then I think he left after that. So those are just a couple of things I want to talk about. Now let's talk about some of these second-round prospects if the Lions go Jeffrey Okudah. And if you guys do enjoy this, let me know by hitting the like button, because that'd be awesome. And we can do more of these, because I think there's definitely different prospects depending on who you take. If you take Chase Young, you're probably not looking edge rusher in the second round, right? Because that doesn't make sense. You're probably looking maybe a cornerback, maybe a Fulton, right? So I think, we could do definitely more of these. But in this video, we're talking about Jeffrey Okudah, because that has been the talk. It's been the talk for months now. The Lions are going to take Okudah. So what they do, let's just say, for example, they do. I don't know if they traded back. I don't know what picks they acquired. Let's just say they took Okudah, and we're talking second round. Second round. Who are the Lions going after? I came up with my top 5 with an honorable mention that I would think the Lions would go after. So let's start it off at the very top, and I have AJ Epinesa. AJ Epinesa, to me, is not the most elite, crazy athlete that just pops off the screen to you. Very productive, though. He's got a lot of different moves that he can go to in a very tough conference to get some very good tackles. His production is unmatched. I mean, every single year he's been a very good player for Iowa. AJ Epinesa is really good in my opinion, and that's why he comes so high, right? He's went against some good tackles when it comes to practice, and I just think AJ Epinesa would be great for the Lions. Again, he's not the most flashy, exciting players. I think he could play on the down line. I think he could play in the jack role. I think he could do both. I don't know what he can really do for you in coverage, so that's probably not where I'd use him, but you want a guy that can just get pressure, which we need. I'd put AJ Epinesa there for sure, and I think he's a little bit better than any of the other edge rushers that would be there in the second round, because that's, when you look at who's probably going to be available in the second round, I think he'd be the best edge rusher available. Next up, we have Zach Bond. Yeah, Zach Bond comes in at 2. I thought this out of Zach Bond. Zach Bond to me is a great choice, and I don't think he's a pure edge rusher. I think he's a linebacker that gives you multiple different things. I think he could play the jack role, and this is why I think it's a good idea, because we brought Devon Kennard in, right? He's our jack. He's just simply a guy that we get pressure, and we released him. Well, why'd we release him? Well, I mean, we don't really know. We don't have a clear-cut answer. But my thought is, well, he didn't have the versatility to drop back in coverage, because he really didn't. He really never dropped back in coverage. And maybe that's because they just knew he couldn't do it, but just never tried it. I'm not sure. But if the Detroit Lions are looking for a jack role that can drop back into coverage, that could definitely be Zach Bond, right? He's got the size to do it. He's not the biggest. He's got some size to do it. He's got the talent to get back to the quarterback and rush, probably just as much as Kennard does. But he also can drop back in coverage. The best edge defenders when it comes back to dropping into coverage, maybe the best edge defender you'll find when it comes to dropping into coverage, honestly. Zach Bond is very good when it comes to doing that, and that's why I think if the Lions are looking for guys that can do both, because obviously they need linebackers that can cover, a guy like Zach Bond could definitely be an option for the Detroit Lions. That's why I put him so high, because I actually think, slowly I'm thinking this is a guy the Detroit Lions should definitely be targeting, and I could definitely see him available at number 35. Next up, I put Cesar Ruiz, the offensive lineman from Michigan. He's a center. I do believe he can move the guard. Most centers do move the guard when it comes to the NFL. They're prepared to do that because it happens a lot. A lot of these guys play center because they're the best offensive linemen. They move to guard when it comes to the NFL. I definitely think Cesar Ruiz could move to guard. He'd probably play that right guard spot, big V at right tackle. And if you fill in your right guard spot with a guy like Ruiz after losing Glasgow, you're getting a very good player. Again, another player out of Michigan that's versatile. I think Cesar Ruiz is one of the best offensive linemen available, if not the best interior lineman available. If not the best interior, I mean, you look at the linemen this year, it's all tackles first round. But after that, who's your best interior offensive lineman? It could be Cesar Ruiz, and if the Lions trade back, maybe they get 26. This could definitely be a pick. The thought is his potential chance, though, he may not make it to 35, because you have teams like the Chiefs who might need a lineman. You know, even possibly, I don't know, maybe the Seahawks. There's definitely some teams before they get to 35 that could be looking to take an offensive lineman, but I do think, especially if the Lions trade back, this could be a good option, you know, if they acquired a late first-round pick, or if he does fall to 35, this could be another good option for the Lions. Cesar Ruiz, stacked at O-line. I'm a big O-line guy, and I think Ruiz could definitely help out. Next up, we have Gross Matos. I like Gross Matos. Not my favorite. Obviously, I don't like him more than AJ Epinesa. That's why he's not higher. But Gross Matos, like Epinesa, is a guy that's going to give you some pressure. Again, tough conference. Penn State, right? He played some good competition. Again, just like Epinesa, I think he's going to give you the same kind of thing. I think he's more of a defensive lineman, not necessarily a jack role. I don't know if I'd put him there. I think he's more a guy that's going to stay on the defensive line pretty much all the time, and that's okay. Him and Trey Flowers would be probably really good together. And again, I think this is definitely a guy that could fall to that number 35 spot. I think this is maybe more likely than AJ Epinesa falling. I'm not sure, but I'd be fine with either one. So yeah, that's why I put him on here. And now at 5, I put Patrick Queen. Now, Patrick Queen to me is a very good coverage linebacker. So when I look at this, I say, okay, Detroit Lions, if they go with Okudah, obviously everybody's interested in Isaiah Simmons because of what he can do. But if the Lions do decide to go Okudah, if you want another guy that can help when it comes to, you know, dropping back into coverage, which Detroit Lions might, I'd rather go edge rusher. But again, hey, if they have some other guys that they're targeting later and they're like, hey, we need guys that can cover, okay, you do you. Patrick Queen may be that option. He's not as big. He's only 6 foot tall, so he's not, doesn't have that crazy size that Isaiah Simmons is, but he can cover. Not like, he's covers a lot better than Kenneth Murray. He's not the best outside of in coverage, but when it does come to coverage, and when you look at our linebacker group, Reggie Ragland, you know, he's a run stopper. Jared Davis, Christian Jones. I mean, not really any of these linebackers are pass coverage guys, right? Jalen Reeves-Maybin kinda, he just doesn't play a lot. But I think a guy like Patrick Queen would give you that mix of a guy that can drop back into coverage and play pretty well in coverage when you ask of it. So I definitely think this is an option for the Detroit Lions. Maybe he can help out with some tight ends, running backs. That's definitely some of the Lions have struggled with, so maybe Patrick Queen could help out there. And finally, my honorable mention is running back. Obviously, there's a chance that one of the top 3 running backs, top 4 running backs, you could say, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think that's how you say his name. Then you have DeAndre Swift. Then you have Jonathan Taylor and J.K. Dobbins. There's a good chance one of them are going to be available. And honestly, I don't know if you go wrong with any of them. I think they could all help out. They give you different things. J.K. Dobbins is more of a back that can do different type of things. I don't think he's the best running back, but I do think he gives you multiple options, which the Lions could be interested in. Obviously, with Ohio State, a lot of, you know, outside runs. Then you look at a guy like Jonathan Taylor. I think he's just a specific running back. You put Jonathan Taylor in the game, you're running the football, right? You're probably not going to pass it to him too much. I don't think he's awful. He just wasn't very good in college. But, you know, at the Combine, he did pretty well. So I do think this is a guy that is a pure running back. And if the Detroit Lions want a guy like that, then that could be Jonathan Taylor. If you look at a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, this is a solid runner and also a guy that caught the ball a lot out of the backfield, which I think is, you know, just gives me flashbacks of Theo, which I miss Theo Riddick. And then DeAndre Swift, who really does it all. So, yeah, I thought, you know, that'd be like the 6th option. I don't know who I'd go after that. If none of those options, if you went with none of those, I'm not really sure where I'd go. But those are definitely the top 5 plus an honorable mention that I would go with. So let me know your thoughts, comments below. What do you guys think about the Stafford talk? Thank you for watching, and I'm out.